Okay, so getting started with today's lab, I have already cleaned, properly sanitized my workspace. Um, and I'm going to start with the first step. We're going to take a quarter-sized amount of the glow germ, and I'm going to put it into the palm of my hand. And as advised, I'm going to spread it around my hands and then make sure to get in between my fingertips as best as possible. Also important to get the backs of the hands to show all of your contamination. All right, so now what I'm going to do is transfer 3 milliliters of tap water into a no-wash test tube. So I'll just go ahead and squirt 1, 2, and 3. So I've put 3 milliliters into my first test tube, which I am just now realizing you guys cannot see. So now we're going to do the same thing for the second no wash test tube. So there's 1, there's 2, and here is 3. I'm going to dispose of this in my isopropyl alcohol disposal cup, which is right here. And now we are going to turn off my handy dandy overhead light, and we are going to pick up our black light, or our ultraviolet light otherwise. And now I'm going to examine for contamination spots. So we're going to examine the work area, my lab coat. So far it doesn't look like anything is on my lab coat, which is good. As far as my work area, I see 1, 2 in front of me, which, as I stated, I did sanitize my work area with 10% bleach solution. Looks like a couple contamination spots on the test tube. Just all right, so we're back. We're gonna do part 2 now, which is a quick wash. I do want to note on the last section, activity 1, or I guess part 1 of activity 1, I was not supposed to dispose of the pipette into my disposal cup right away. I was supposed to examine it for contamination spots. Unfortunately, I can't do that now because of the fact that it's an isopropyl alcohol. However, I'm just going to not note any contamination of the pipette, considering it was kept in a closed plastic bag all this time. So moving forward to part 2, we're gonna do the same thing. I have already quickly washed my hands. I did a really quick rinse with soap and water, probably no more than 7 seconds total of washing. So now we're going to take our transfer pipette and we're going to perform the same activity. So I'm going to grab 3 milliliters of tap water and add it into each test tube. All right, so there's 3 for that one. There's 2 and 3. All right. So since I messed up on this last time, I'm gonna hold on to this. We're gonna go ahead and turn off my handy dandy light. And we're now going to examine the sink for contamination. So we are at my sink and we are going to examine for contamination spots, especially on the handle that I touched. It definitely looks like there's some contamination going on here. As you can see, there's some spots over here. This handle has some spots as well. So I'm back from the sink, and I was just going to check my test tubes for contamination, as well as my pipette, which fortunately my pipette doesn't look to have any contamination as I was thinking. As far as my pipette or my test tubes, there doesn't appear to be any contamination, just some water spots on the sides. Alright, so as instructed, I'm going to add more glow germ to my hands. I'm going to do about a quarter size in my palm. I'm going to spread it around, get it in my fingernails. Make sure it gets in all the fingernails, all the webbing, and on the backs of the hands. Now I'm going to go wash my hands. So, we're going to follow proper hand washing techniques, which I need my paper towels. Alright, got my paper towels. So, like I said, we're going to follow the proper hand washing techniques. We're going to get all the glow germ off. We're going to get any bacteria that is on my hands off. I'm going to take my ring off real quick. Okay, so with that being said, I am going to turn on the faucet using a paper towel. Actually, I'm going to do warm water. So, I'm going to put my body over the sink, my hands facing downwards, my arms facing downwards, and we'll just start with running some water through. Get the hands nice and wet, and then we will get some soap. As you can tell, I still have my body over the sink. Hands are facing down. Fingertips are towards the sink. I'm being sure to get above my hands, around my wrists. I'm making sure to get in between my fingers in the webbing, as I talked about in part 1. Look to be filled with contaminants. The ridges and the fingertips around where the nails are the number one spot on your hands that retain bacteria and microorganisms. So this is why it's so important to perform proper hand washing, especially in the medical field. which many of us are going into. But as you can tell, I still have my fingertips down, trying not to touch the sink at all. I'm going to go ahead and use my brush, get under my fingernails. To remove contaminants. All right. So moving on to the second hand, trying to get any extra microorganisms that are hiding out, any extra bacteria, trying to just expel those from the fingernail. Alright. So now, using a paper towel, I'm going to turn off the faucet to decrease any contaminants. Now I need to check for, any extra of the glow germ, any extra bacteria. So I'm going to go grab my ultraviolet light and I will be right back. So I'm going to hit the light with my elbow, protected by my lab coat, and we'll go ahead and check. Looks like the left hand is good so far. Right hand looks good. All right, so I have properly executed a good hand wash. Now I'm gonna grab a towel and grab my phone so we can go back and video the rest of this project. All right, now that the hand washing is complete, we can go ahead and add tap water to each of the Good Wash test tubes. So we're still gonna do our 3 milliliters per tube. All right, so now that that's done, I'm gonna place my pipette down and we need to go ahead and examine for bacteria. So I've got my black light, my ultraviolet light. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my overhead and start looking for contamination spots. All right. So it doesn't look like we have any contamination spots. Maybe just one on the test tube rack, but I'm not sure what that would be from. Looks like I also got like a thorough wash on my hands as well.